The NWO is preparing to move again. I've been telling everyone for quite a while, this so-called movement in the Middle East to bring about democracy is taking scumbag leaders that are already scumbags, and for the most part, and removing them because they won't completely play ball. They wouldn't completely do everything that they wanted them to do, so you get rid of them. You replace them with the promise of a better future for the people, with elements that would do what you want them to do. If you've been keeping up with things, Syria is on the hot radar of the international community to make reforms and bring about the democracy. So, I have read an article in our paper here, I believe it was the AP, Nahal El-Sharif and Ramadan Al-Fatash from Deutsche Press, and he made Assad here made the statement that any Western involvement in Syria would cause an earthquake and transform the country into another Afghanistan. And Syria is the hub in the region, and it's the fault line, and if you play with the ground, you will cause an earthquake. And then we can read on even through that article, and in an interview with the Russian TV Sunday, Assad here said he pinned his hopes on Moscow's continued support for Syria. Russia's played an important role on the international arena. This was clear in its use of the veto power at the UN Security Council. In early October, Russia and China vetoed the Security Council resolution condemning Assad's government for its crackdown on protesters. Russia's stance is based on its awareness of the risks involved in foreign political or military intervention in Syria's international affairs. That's what Assad told them. So, we can also see that during the interview also, he admitted that his troops made many mistakes in the early stages of the uprising, but he insisted that only terrorists are now being targeted. And the opposition activists said at least 60 people were killed by our security forces over the weekend. So, they have something going on over there. And he doesn't want to play ball, and he is willing to, I would say, he's and his country are more equipped to put up way more of a fight, I believe, than Libya. So, he's willing to go, and it sounds like he's already saying stay out of it or there's going to be trouble. And then they had another article in my paper from the LA Times, and they're talking about his brutal reaction to the protests that make him unfit, and this is an idea that they would push on the consensus of the Arab countries to group together against him, to try and work against him and remove him. But they say he's unfit to lead because of the protests, and they're using that to try and springboard him out of there. And then they go on to talk about the ambassador Robert Ford, who a month ago his motorcade got attacked and trapped and some other diplomats were trapped in an office building. And then the Obama administration recalled Ford. Now, the Syrian National Council, that's an umbrella organization and it's got, a bunch of rebel groups in it, and it claims they don't support airstrikes by outside governments, which would be everybody that helped get rid of Gaddafi. Instead, it wants international monitors. So that means NATO forces and anybody else that wants to chip in. And they want them to take up positions inside the country and be armed. It goes on to read in the article that not being armed would be ineffective against his security forces. So, boots on the ground. On Wednesday, a little committee had the Prime Minister of Qatar, and they met with him, apparently, and they gave him like 30 days to establish a ceasefire, start a dialogue with the opposition, the rebels. If he doesn't do it, they'll have another little meeting, and they'll discuss other options. So, we already have these things going on. And this guy here, he's the only one so far that's put down the uprising. He's still going. And I think I said like 3,000 people over here. We're not there, so we're not live to be able to see. But we don't really know how many of them were rebels or what. But the number was 3,000, and I believe I heard about 187 were children. So there is the next target, and I have no date or time, but it won't be too long in the future off, and you'll see something happening with Syria. NATO, the UN, the US will have to make a choice and chime in. We'll see how involved we get in that, but mark my words, they're going to be wanting to come there and get rid of him. And I would be awful surprised if he'd make any concessions to keep him out. I'll be real surprised if that happens. Now this little article here was in my paper again, our paper. And it's talking about my state, and it's talking about someone that is from, their business was located, and they were living here in my town. And it's Enid-based, Continental Resources Incorporated, polluting state waters and failing to clean up spills quickly. And this would be polluting the water in North Dakota. You can read through the article. And he is, the owner, Harold Hamm, has become a billionaire in the last few years. And he's using, I believe, the fracking method to extract much of the gas up there. And the oil, I think he's doing a lot of natural gas, I believe. But it wasn't a lot in the article that spilled. They have some little examples there, and there was like one bird, a couple of barrels of oil, and then there was the second incident, 2 barrels of oil spewed from a well and spread to the water where one dead duck was discovered. So it's not big things in this, but it is something to understand that at least from where I live, I pay attention to it because he used to live here, and he recently relocated to Oklahoma City. And also there's some involvement with I know one, I want to say 2 explosions at work sites there up north where there were some injuries, and I believe the lawsuit was filed, And I'm pretty sure that I had read that Harold Hamm and Continental Resources were seeking to have it dismissed. So I'm not sure if that means they've reached an out-of-court agreement, or if he just plain out thinks we're not liable for the explosions and, etc., etc. But anyhow, his wealth has increased substantially in the last few years. And a lot of it, like I said, is for the fracking. And we know what that does to the underground when you go under there and use that technology. Although frackers will tell you that they have a technique that is purely safe, and then you can get into discussions about how does that contribute to earthquakes, and they'll tell you this and they'll tell you that. So I just wanted to show you that one. Now this, I have absolutely no idea why that says 200 meters here on spaceweather.com. Couldn't begin to even, I don't know why. I'm not even going to contact them and ask them. But I do know this is the only place that I've found it. Some people are thinking, since they're finding other places that are showing 400 meters, they're thinking that it's gotten bigger. But in reality, when this was being talked about and followed in its early inception around YouTube and stuff, and from when I came about it, it was 400 meters and always had been. Well, I don't have an answer for that, but I do have this, and this is the article. Don Yeomans, he's the big shot that tells us we don't get hit or anything. And it says it right here. Close approach by this relatively large 400 meter size C-type asteroid. So you got it right plain there from the, so to speak, horse's mouth. So 400 feet, or 400 meters, meters, is 1,300 feet roughly. And that is what I had read in the very, very early 2005 YU55 stages of when we're talking about it and finding out about it, reading, looking. And still, I don't think it's going to hit the moon. We'll just see. But I think everything's going to be fine. Hopefully we'll be able to see something. Somebody gets pictures or anything. I would like to see this, because I don't believe it's really going to hit anything, and I would just like to catch a glimpse. They say it's going to be moving pretty quick, and it won't be real super easy to capture, but we'll find out. Anyhow, it's 400 meters. Don't understand why. And of course, it doesn't really matter why anyhow. So everyone, we're approaching the midweek, and a week from now, which Wednesday, we'll be rolling into the 9th, and that'll be their little Pacific game, and we'll see what we got. I think they're going to do what they're going to do and have their little game and their 3-minute shutdown of communications and stuff. But I think that's just a test for later on. How much later on, I don't have a time area right now, but it's not way long off. And if something out of the ordinary happens, YU-55 changes course, or something that we don't know about that we've missed, we'll know. Anyhow, I'll let everybody go. Other than the earthquakes I listed on my channel, the 6.5 and the 6.3, those are the biggest ones that I've seen today. So God bless everyone, your dear friends. I appreciate your support, and I'll speak to you soon. Good night.